everyone, and welcome back. It's Mindy with Mindy Egan Design, and today's card is for the spring challenge over at Kraftin Kimmie Stamps. I apologize, this video was a little late getting up. I just didn't have time to do the voiceover, so I'm getting to that now. Daddy took one of the kids shopping and the other one is sleeping, so you don't realize how noisy your house or neighborhood is until you need to do a voiceover. So anyway, to the card, I'm starting out with the stamp set from Kraftin Kimmie Stamps that is called Fancy Florals, and I'm going to be using the individual flowers in this stamp set. So what I did off camera is I went ahead and stamped these on some post-it tape, and then I created masks for these because I wanted to lay these flowers out at the bottom of the card and have some ink blending going on, but I didn't want my flowers ink blended. So I went ahead and created masks. I actually created 2 for each flower just because I wasn't really sure how everything was going to lay out. I'm going to use the Misty stamping tool to line everything up and stamp my images. So I placed that piece of cardstock in the top corner, and I typically, when I'm doing any type of card, I'm going to cut my paper I'm working with to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then if I need to trim it down, I can always do that. I like starting larger, so I can always trim it down if I need to. So what I'm doing here is these are the masks that I created, and honestly, when I cut the masks, I did not go into every single little nook and cranny. I just kind of did a basic outline, and I figured if anything else, I could always come in with some Copics that match the ink blending I'm going to do and fill in any little areas. So I lined up all of those masks along the bottom of the card to where I wanted everything to go, how it was going to fill the bottom of the card. And my intention was I was going to have these daisies be in the front. So that's why I'm stamping that first. I forgot about that as I was stamping, but that was the original intention. So that is why you're seeing me start with the daisy. That is going to be my front image. And I'm going to be using some Copic Safe ink to stamp my image. I originally had planned on Copic coloring these, so that is why I used that ink. So I just went ahead and stamped them, and I like to stamp them twice to make sure I have that really solid line to my images. And I'm going to continue this process with all of the flowers. So I'm just going to add my mask to that daisy, and then I'll start layering with the other 2 flower designs that I have. So lining that up, stamping that again, and all of the flowers I did stamp twice. So you'll see me just add that mask to the bottom, and I like to use my tweezers so that I can see around, my fingertips aren't in the way, I can see around everything, make sure I lined up the flowers nice, and I went along the bottom of that card. Now, as I was stamping, I forgot that I wanted the daisy in the front, but it still worked out really good. I did have a couple little gaps, but wasn't anything I was too worried about. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish that up. And I will have all of these supplies listed down below in the description area of the video and also on my blog. And you can take a look at the challenge that's going on right now for Kraftin Kimmie Stamps. It is spring themed, so that is why you're seeing this really nice warm color card. It's winter in Wisconsin. I'm tired of winter, so that is why I chose these colors. These are the Distress Oxides, and I'm using picked raspberry and squeezed lemonade. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a layer of ink to the card, and you'll see I have all my masks on my flowers now. And I'm going to use some sponge daubers. I kind of switch between the ink blending tools and the sponge daubers, just whatever happens to be handy and clean at the moment, because I do wash the blending pads and the daubers just because I don't have enough for everything. So I'm starting out at the bottom of that card with the yellow, kind of adding a soft glow right above those. Just going in some light circular motions, being careful not to pull up on that post-it tape that I used for my masks. And then coming in with the picked raspberry, blending into the yellow. And I'll come back with the yellow and blend into that picked raspberry just to soften that line so there's no harsh lines. And it creates kind of a soft orange, which was really nice. So these colors work together really well. Great for the spring challenge. And now I have this stencil from Simon Says Stamps. It's really pretty butterflies. Some of them are solid images. Some of them have a pattern to them, so you could also do some layering if you wanted. So what I decided to do was come in with a little bit of darker colors than what my background is, just to add that contrast. And I'm going to use a fossilized amber for this one. So I decided to start with a small butterfly off of the stencil, and I didn't tape it down or anything, but what I did want to do that I realized as I was getting ready to blend was I wanted to mask off those other butterflies because I wasn't sure really where I was going with this. I didn't know where I wanted my butterflies yet, so I just added some of that Post-it tape to those butterflies, cover them up, and then I can come in with some soft circular motions, just being real careful. I didn't want to pull up on those little antenna pieces, and added some of that fossilized amber in there. And then once I have that down, that stood out really nice and soft against the background. It was just enough contrast. And then I just moved my stencil a little bit. This one I kind of have over top of my flower masks to kind of give it a more natural effect. And then I'll clean that off and come in with the Abandoned Coral. And this time I decided to use the patterned butterfly. And I thought that turned out really nice. This one I have kind of off the side of the card, another more natural effect. So I just kept moving my stencil around and adding in that Abandoned Coral Distress Oxide. And now, just to give a little bit more added effect, I'm going to take some Perfect Pearls and I scoop a little bit out with the tip of my paintbrush. And I'm just going to put that on my craft mat. And then I take some water and I spritz it down also on the craft mat, and I'm going to mix those together. And then I'm going to just take the paintbrush and I'm going to flick these speckles onto the cardstock. It kind of gives the water droplet look, and it just adds a nice little shimmer to the background of the card. I didn't want to get any over the flowers because sometimes that water can seep through. So I'm just going to kind of cover those up with a piece of scrap cardstock. And then just using the paintbrush, just adding some flicks. These are really kind of nice natural flicks. So just adding that all around the card. And just adding some nice shimmer to that. So that turned out really nice. And then I can put this off on the side to dry. So now I have my card and I'm going to remove the masks. And like I said, I had intended on doing some Copic coloring, but once I removed the masks, I really liked how that white stood out against that soft background. So I decided I'm just going to leave it. I didn't want to add too much going on to the card. I thought the butterflies coming out and that soft glow was just enough. So there we have that nice stark white. And there were a little bit of gaps down at the bottom from my masks, but I didn't worry about it. I thought no one was really going to notice anyway until I just told you. So to finish off the card, I did trim this down. And I'm going to have an A2 size card base. So the card base is going to be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And before I added anything, I'm going to use the Misty tool to add a sentiment. I like using the Misty tool because I can line that up straight. And if it doesn't stamp right the first time, I can stamp it again. This just ensures that all the work I put into this card is not going to get ruined by me messing up the sentiment. So I use the VersaFine black ink. This is just a really nice black ink to use, especially on top of those oxides. You just have to be careful with it because it does stay wet a little bit longer. So you just want to make sure that's nice and dry before you flip it over and add adhesive to the back of the card. So I have this Turquoise Sea cardstock from Gina K Designs that I thought was just a really nice color to add with this springy background. So that is what I'm using to map my card with. And then I can attach that to my A2 size card base. And for a couple of finishing touches that you'll see here shortly is I'm just adding some sparkling clear discs, I guess they are, from Pretty Pink Posh, and I add those with my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. And that is going to end up finishing off the card. So thank you so much for joining me. I apologize this is a little bit late, but I do hope you head over, check out my blog for the challenge over at Kraftin Kimmie Stamps and all of the supplies listed below. And if you haven't subscribed and you'd like to keep up with any new videos that I post, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Thanks again, and I'll catch you in the next video.